whether or not it actually played into the Kasper Bjorkqvist departure. He goes and signs with Oulun Karpat of Liiga, 6 games with the Penguins, 1 goal last season. It's weird because at the end of the year, Hextall had that press conference, said that, listen, we know we need to use youth a lot more next year. Mentioned Bjorkqvist twice when he was listing off names. Might have been a mistake. Might have just forgot that he said it. But it's in the front of his mind.
Yeah.
And then Bjorkqvist just leaves. Now, listen, he's still an RFA, still technically under Penguins control. If they send him a contract, he can sign it and come back. We've seen other players use this as negotiating tactics. I don't think it's that, simply because I don't think Bjorkqvist has quite, the leverage of his play, whereas he can be replaced a little bit by a guy like Hollander, by a guy like Zahorna, by a guy, other
Puustinen.
centers. Puustinen is a winger,
Centers,
but same thing because Bjorkqvist plays center. But there's also 3 centers in the NHL right now with the Penguins, and if they sign Malkin, it's 4. So I don't think this is really a leverage play by Bjorkqvist, but it's just a sign that, listen, a lot of the young European prospects now are starting to go over. It started with Emil Larmi. Juuso Riikola earlier this offseason chose to go back. He didn't like the way that he was being handled here in the Penguins organization. And now Bjorkqvist. And now we don't know if that's the reason, but we do know that there's a history of him not being pleased with his progression. And now he's playing over in Finland. So I don't know if there's anything to that, but it certainly seems like there might be.
Yeah. As a contract negotiation tactic, I get it. That does make sense for players to do. And it would make sense, I think, in Bjorkqvist's case, like, hey, play me a little more in the NHL, or I'm literally going to go to Finland. I already have a contract. But it's the quote where he said that he wasn't pleased that sticks out to me, as he doesn't care. Not that he doesn't care, but he was not pleased with his AHL time. And like you mentioned, we have 3, possibly a 4th center already on the NHL squad. Mm-hmm. There's no room for him. He's going to be back in the AHL again, where he just said he wasn't pleased. I think it's most likely we're losing him. And that hurts because it's one of our top prospects in a very thin prospect pool.
Yeah.
So, damn, got to figure that one out. But yeah, it hurts to see him go like that, but we're at a logjam at center. There's nothing else we can do about it, because we just had the long conversation of how we and the team want Malkin back. Well, there's the 4th center right there. That immediately stopgaps not immediately stops them from making the NHL, but that immediately stops most of these AHL centers from cracking a lineup.
Yep. And you have to imagine there's other guys, and I wrote a story for Inside the Penguins for SI yesterday about other players and other prospects that are going to look at this and take it as an opportunity. Hollander being chief among them, because he is right there. I mean, he's 22 years old right now. He needs to take a step next year, but it certainly helps when the depth chart has one name taken out of it already. Hollander played in 1 game last year. You would think that with Bjorkqvist out, who was expected to have a real shot in training camp of being either the next guy in, or maybe possibly even being that guy and bumping Carter to wing. You never know what those guys are going to think about up at the NHL level. Now that's Hollander's opportunity. A guy like Lukas Svejkovsky, who's not going to make the NHL next year, but he bumps up the depth chart. It helps. He might have a chance to make the Wilkes-Barre team next year if that's where the Penguins want him. He has 1 year left of eligibility in the WHL, but he might go from there straight to Wilkes-Barre and be a second liner, be a power play guy. Similarly, Nathan Legare.
Yeah.
Because, again, 1 less prospect means even though he has struggled, he bumps up that list.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say about this before we cut to a quick break is I don't know about Riikola and about Bjorkqvist how much of it is that Patrick Alvin left the organization at the end of last year. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but of course, we're giving Alvin a lot of credit on the work that he was doing in Europe, in Finland, in Sweden, in all those countries with the scouting and with the promises and bringing those guys over. Him leaving, I'm not sure how much of a bearing that has on these European players heading back over because they weren't happy with their development. And now potentially the guy that had a part in bringing them over and keeping them happy here is gone. Because I know for a fact, for me personally, if I get a job somewhere because of this guy and this guy's making promises to me and then he leaves, I'm less likely to stay. But that's just me in general. Like, hockey is different, but I do think there's still that element there.